Take it away, Ursula.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ursula Rosem speaking. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the co-directors of the Campaign for New York Health alongside Yu Ling. We're so thrilled that so many of you are making the time to join us tonight to share reflections on the legislative session that just ended and to talk about some of what we know are the next steps forward. On tonight's call, there will be an opportunity to talk with one another in breakout rooms, as Yuling said. We will hear from our lead bill sponsors, Assemblymember Dick Gottfried and Senator Rivera, as well as from coalition partners in the fight for universal health care. And then we will talk about the plan of action for the coming months. Before we launch into all of that, we want to acknowledge that while we did not win the grand prize of the New York Health Act this year, we did make extremely historic gains based on having majority co-sponsors in the Assembly and State Senate. We know that single payer healthcare is so popular that elected Democrats feel the need to co-sponsor the bill, even if they're not fighting for it yet. We got to having majority in both houses thanks to this powerful statewide coalition that has so much potential to really blossom, to be the powerful movement that we need to get the New York Health Act across the finish line. We did many amazing things together this year. Collectively, we sent over 11,000 emails to legislators and at least 2,000 tweets to legislators. You all helped generate 2,000 calls to state lawmakers just in the month of May. Organizers around the state and campaign volunteers organized over 50 meetings with our legislators. Actions were held in Syracuse and Ithaca and New Paltz, Kingston, Rochester, and Buffalo, Saratoga, Yonkers, and New York City, and of course, digitally around the state. We quadrupled our activity on Twitter and Facebook and doubled activity and engagement on Instagram. And for a first for the Campaign for New York Health, we and you all participated in a powerful civil disobedience action with a die-in in front of the Capitol, which really lays the groundwork for future escalations and confrontations to demand passage of the New York Health Act. We know that there is a lot of work left to do. But we also believe it's critical to reflect on the gains and the building that we did together that is going to help us get the bill across the finish line. So in the rest of the call, we will spend sharing reflections and then talking about some of those next steps to help build the support needed to get the Health Act across the finish line. So you can just see on the screen some of the statistics and the Campaign for New York Health by the numbers that I just shared.
Thanks, Ursula. So everyone, if you could think about one word about how you feel about the legislative session. In a minute, we will be getting in breakout rooms to do some introductions and more discussion. But if you could share one word in the chat about how you feel about the legislative session. We know there are lots of emotions and you may have more than one emotion. That's okay, seems totally reasonable. I have a lot of emotions about the session myself. But if you could share one word in the chat, we'd love to see what you're thinking. Yes, I'm feeling a lot of these words. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, so I now want to switch to a different word. What's one word about something you appreciate about the movement? Yes, community, solidarity, compassion, hope, the people, persistence. Oh, it's moving so fast. I'm not reading all of them. I'm just catching some. Oh, sophisticated. I like that. Continuing, never surrender, relentless. We aren't alone. That's right. Thanks so much, everybody. Okay, so we will now get into, you can keep putting words in the chat. It'll just take us a minute to get everyone into breakout rooms where we would like everyone to discuss a bit more about the word that you put in the chat, why you answered the way you did. Also share, first, of course, share your name, your pronouns, your location, any organization or affiliation if you'd like to share that, and then discuss what or why you shared in the chat. Your one word about the legislative session, and then the one word about something or someone that you appreciate. Yes.
Hey, is this Felix? Hello, can you hear me, Felix? Hi, Lucille. Folks are in breakout rooms for just a couple more minutes. So we will resume the call when everyone comes back. Is that okay, Lucille?
Yeah, sorry.
It happens. I was you yesterday in another.
Goodness.
Welcome, Mev and Ivana. The rest of the participants are in breakout rooms, but we have just 2 minutes left. So
I left because everybody in my breakout room, I guess, was not in front of their computers.
oh, okay. And welcome person on the Moto G7. The other participants are in breakout rooms, but we'll be wrapping up in a minute. I think it's good if we're able to sit tight.
Hello? I can't hear anything.
Hey, Earl, we're just going to be wrapping up breakout rooms, so that's why you can't hear anything.
Sorry, I'm so late.
I think it's okay. We know you had a busy day.
What was, Ursula, what was going on in breakout room?
There were just a couple of prompts for sharing and getting to know each other.
Oh, gotcha.
I think we'll be closing in a moment.
Okie doke.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed talking to fellow healthcare campaigners in the breakout rooms. Looks like people are having rich conversations with one another and using their last seconds to finish their sharing.
Let's go.
We hope that you all enjoyed sharing your reflections, even though briefly, with
Briefly.
healthcare campaigners from other parts of the state. And we're gonna move on with the agenda. And we're really grateful to have with us tonight Senator Gustavo Rivera. Senator Rivera, I thought I saw you enter. Are you in a position to unmute yourself?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think lots of folks here are eager tonight to hear your reflections on what happened this legislative session and where we ended up with our efforts to pass the New York Health Act. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Well, I'll tell you that there's, I mean, to provide some full context, there is, when one looks at the entirety of the year, I mean, obviously this is a bill that I care deeply about and that I've and that I think that we need to pass. And I was working relentlessly to be able to achieve some things this year which had not been achieved before. Number one, we managed to get the more co-sponsors than we've ever had before. And there's a process that happens internally in the conference where we conference a bill, which means that we actually have a deep, thorough discussion on the policy issue within in a closed conference. And it was the first time that we ever did that in the years that I've been carrying the bill. And it turned out to be a 3-hour conversation in which many questions were answered. And we kind of went back and forth with them with all my different colleagues. And again, both of these things are things that hadn't been achieved before. But the reality is that we were not able to reach a consensus within the conference. And there is that's just the reality. When you look back, and I want to make sure that you understand this, that this year was actually a banner year in so many ways. Not only were we able to tax the rich in ways that we hadn't before. We were able to get legalized cannabis, which is something that we've been trying to achieve for a while, and it was a bill that had social justice at the cornerstone of it. We were able to pass a bill that just the governor, after a fight for over a week, he got it signed. He signed it last night. One of my bills, like 3 minutes. This is not a lot, 3 minutes before midnight, that deals with an opioid settlement fund, so that to make certain that the governor, when there's a big settlement, the one that we just got for $230 million from Johnson & Johnson, that it does not go to the governor's hands, to the central, to the general fund, so he can do whatever he wants with it, but instead that it actually goes to treatment and harm reduction services, et cetera. These are things that we were able to achieve this year. So in the big push, this is one that we couldn't get right over the hill. But I do believe that we have built momentum in a way that we had been building up to last year. The Rona year is a complete loss, obviously. And we had built up momentum because of the public hearings that many of you attended and many of you had a presence at all around the state. That built up energy that then in 2020 kind of, disappeared because of the Rona. And then we had to build it up back again. And then we certainly were able to build quite a bit, but not enough to get consensus in the conference. And so currently what we're doing is there is a commitment that I have from the leader to actually dig deeper into the bill over this break leading up to January of next year, in an internal process that we have been, that has always produced bills that we've been able to pass in the past. So that is what, that's where we are right now.
And then I'm not sure if you have more you want to say. I did get a couple messages for you to explain what is conference. What is this?
So
what are you referring to?
When we used to do it in person, during the Rona, we did it virtually just like this, right? When the Democratic Conference gets together to have a meeting, every day when we are in session, we have conference, which means we just have a meeting to discuss what's going to happen on the day of what's going to happen on the floor that day, and some of the things that are coming up. And during those conversations, when you conference a bill, it means that you bring up a bill, you have a description of it, a deep description done by the staff, and then the senators, then the sponsor, in this case myself, then has a conversation with other senators when they ask all sorts of questions about the bill. And that was a 3-hour meeting. It was a 2-hour conversation one day, and then we had to wrap up because we had to go to the floor. And then we had an extra hour the day after that, in which basically all the questions many of the questions that you can think about were discussed. So that is something that had never happened before. And just so you understand, whether it was the bills that we passed ultimately to raise taxes on the rich, whether it was the bail reform that we did last year or 2 years ago at this point, whether it was the housing reform that we did a couple of years ago, whether it was the voting bills that we've done, every single one of these had to be conferenced. If it's a big bill, if it's a big controversial bill, it has to be conferenced before it actually goes to the floor. So that's just one of the processes that we'd never gotten before, but we got to do it. And that was 3 hours, but not enough to build a consensus to be able to get it to the floor. Not this year.
Thank you. And so as you see, we have over 100 people on the meeting tonight, and we had, I think about close to 200 sign up. So we're doing pretty good for organizer math here tonight. And we had lots of questions in the lead up to the meeting for yourself and Godfried, who I don't think, is he here yet, Yuling? Unfortunately, the esteemed assembly member is not here yet, so you're alone with us in the hot seat. But multiple people asked iterations on this question.
Well, it is. I am in the hot seat because it is 100 and friggin' degrees. I hope that you're cool wherever you folks are. I'll tell you that right now.
Undisclosed location, very cool here. So I think that you are saved by the Zoom waiting room. Assemblymember Gottfried is here, and maybe we'll give him just a second to catch his breath. But could you maybe share your perspective on what are a couple of the stumbling blocks or challenges that we should be prepared to, I guess, work through in the coming 6 months, let's say, in the lead up to into the 2020 session?
I would say from my perspective, there's two of them that are particularly important. One is to make sure that you wherever you are, and whatever your senator, whoever your senator or your assembly member is, not only to make sure that not only they're supporters, but that they're champions of it, right? There's a difference between just putting your name on the thing and being a warrior for it. And some of my colleagues certainly stepped up. I can certainly name many of them that did step up, but many of them did not. And so I would ask you to not only connect with your senators and your assembly members, but to ask them to become not only sponsors, but champions of it. And second, considering that it has been public sector unions that have been particularly resistant to this, and we are working on that from our angle. But for those of you who are either members of a public sector union, either in the city or in the state, whether it's CSEA or PEF or DC 37, that working on the leadership of your union, working along with other members of your particular union to organize internally to then put pressure on the leadership. And we'll do some from our end, and you got to do, and then having membership doing from their end would be essential. So I guess those would be the two things that I think are particularly important in the coming 6 months.
So much, Senator Rivera. And there were many variations on that question. So I'm sorry if I did not phrase it specifically the way they were submitted from everyone. Since he's here with us now, I do want to invite Assemblymember Godfrey to share his perspectives on what happened this legislative session and how you see where we ended up on June 7th.
Well, one thing, as you can tell, is that in the course of this session, Gustavo and I learned to coordinate our shirts and eyeglass frames. I think Gustavo has it right, not surprisingly, that what we need is for members of both houses who are signed on as co-sponsors of the bill, as well as organizations that are signed on as supporting the bill, to raise the volume, banging on pots and pans and pitchforks. We accomplished some extraordinary things in this legislative session. We created a $2 billion, entirely state-funded, a $2 billion state program of essentially unemployment coverage for primarily undocumented New Yorkers who are excluded from federally matched unemployment coverage. Just not only the concept of that, but the dollar amount that we put into it was almost unbelievable. And it happened because a group of legislators who believed very deeply in it got very loud and very forceful in pushing for it. Gustavo was one of them. It became an irresistible movement. Now, it had the advantage that the opposition to it was not some organized, powerful, interest group. The opposition to it was, inertia, and some of my colleagues aren't as committed to the interests of undocumented immigrants as others are. And $2 billion of state money in a year when, we were getting a lot of federal money, but we were also losing a lot of state money in tax collections. $2 billion is an amazing dollar figure that we achieved. But it would not have happened without the significant number and volume and and level of passion and persistence of a group of legislators and of a group of very effective advocacy groups. We need to generate that for the New York Health Act. I believe we can. I hope that we can bring some of the advocacy groups that are on board with the bill, bring them to a higher level of involvement, partly by pointing to what we could achieve, by what we did achieve on several issues in this past legislative session, and using that in turn at the same time to lobby legislators to be more outspoken, not just signing on as co-sponsors, but speaking up in conference for the bill, whether it's the topic for the day and is welcome or not, and speaking up in other ways. At the same time, we're going to be reaching out to representatives of some of the public sector unions to see if we can convince them, maybe with some new bill language, that the New York Health Act will in fact protect the interests of their members far beyond what any union can accomplish, not disparaging the existing unions, and at the same time free up those unions for to invest their bargaining leverage in wages and benefits. So I think that's kind of our message going forward, that we've got to really intensify everything that we've been doing.
Thank you so much. And it sounds, a lot of what you both are sharing is very complementary, that we have to be doing work at the local level, continuing to build the base, and also allowing you as legislators to be having conversations with leadership in the unions. We've gotten some questions, and we don't want to keep you on for too long because we do have a packed agenda. But when we got several iterations of this question in the registration form, and like, how can you tell if someone is asking for reasonable tweaks to the bill versus someone who is just stalling, kicking the can down the road and hoping it dies and that like they tire us out? How do you tell the difference between like someone that wants to discuss the issues in good faith versus killing time?
It's hard to do. Gustavo, it looks like you want to be unmuted. There you are.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, go ahead. You start. I just want to make sure that I was unmuted, but go ahead, Dick.
Oh, it's really hard to do. I mean, if somebody is publicly saying, "Oh, of course I'm for the bill," and is privately saying, "Well, yeah, it's a nice bill, but I really don't want to vote on it because it might annoy some group or other." Since we don't use lie detectors, it's kind of hard to sort that out. I think one way to find out what's on legislators' minds, I guess, is to ask not what questions do you, assembly member or senator so-and-so, have about the bill, but have you heard questions from constituents about such and such a bill? It's kind of like the person who says, "Oh, this friend of mine has this ailment." Not that I have this ailment. And that may be a way to encourage people to tell you what's on their mind, and then respond to their questions.
Yeah. One way that you can tell is if they tell you that neither of us is meeting with them. If they tell you that either of us is unavailable for meetings or hasn't been able to schedule a meeting or some other such nonsense, that's one of them. Since we make ourselves available, and we have made ourselves extra available, and have always done so. So that's number one. Outside of that, it is engaging with people until, if somebody asks me, for something that is if something that I think is, I will ask to see if it's reasonable. And if we come back to them and said, hey, that thing that you asked us about, we actually thought about it, and this is the thing that we came up with to resolve that. And then they changed their concern. That's another one. But it is outside of those telltale signs. Sometimes it's kind of hard.
Yep.
Ursula, you got
we've
another
also
one?
gotten a couple iterations.
By the way, every time I send out like a co-sponsor solicitation for the New York Health Act, and I do that regularly just in case somebody new wants to sign on. At the end of the letter, I always say, if you have any questions about the bill, contact me or, Misha Sogan on my staff. That's in every communication I send out on it. I don't think I've ever had a response. I mean, I've had a couple of colleagues who've asked me questions about the bill, but they're all from people who are very adamantly for it and just have a technical question or two. And I write them back an answer, and they're very happy. But I extremely rarely hear from a colleague raising a concern about the bill.
Thank you. And I think we were going to move on because we have a few more people on the agenda tonight, but there is a question that has been coming up that came up in several legislative meetings I had the privilege to sit in on. And what do you say to your colleagues that now have doubts about a universal public single payer health program, given the way we saw that the Department of Health was unable to protect people during the COVID pandemic? There's a lot of distrust of the department. Well, there is some distrust of the Department of Health. Do you have advice on how you respond to those folks who have trouble trusting that government can do anything right when it comes to health care?
Well, first of all, I mean, there were a lot of problems in the way we did and didn't respond to COVID. But one thing I've said about single payer coverage from the very start of getting involved with the issue, and it was part of the logic of single payer that convinced me to sign on, is that the most important guarantee of the quality of the program, and that's really what's being asked, is this program in the hands of, governor whoever down the road and health commissioner whoever, is it going to turn into crap? And the answer is that the only guarantee of quality and the best guarantee of quality is the fact that wealthy New Yorkers, powerful New Yorkers, the governor, every member of the legislature, all our family, all our friends are all going to be covered by this plan. And 20 million New Yorkers will benefit from the fact that you can bet that me and the governor and everybody else will do everything we can to make sure that our health plan is as good as a health plan can be. And 20 million New Yorkers get to be in the same plan with us.
Everybody in, nobody out.
Exactly. And if we're all in the same boat, it'll be a much better boat.
We agree.
Well, thank you for making the time to be here with us. I know that there are a lot of things people would love to discuss with you, so we'll have to save that for another evening. We hope that you are able to get some rest post-legislative session and post-primary, and we look forward to seeing on a future call or maybe in the streets.
Okay.
considering that I had to fight the governor until literally 11:57 p.m. last night to get him to sign a bill that would guarantee us $230 million. It's like that. There's no rest for the wicked, my friends. But thank you so much for all your efforts to everybody around the state.
Yes, very much so. Okay,
Have a good night.
you too.
Yuling, do we have slides now, or should we launch right into?
No, we can just, the reason we've come so far is because of everyone in this room. We have majority support because of everyone here. We had weekly phone banks to constituents in target districts because of everyone here. We had dozens of people lie down on the hot pavement for hours as an act of civil disobedience in Albany, and so much more. So we have so many individuals and organizations in this movement to thank. We want to highlight 3 partner organizations tonight to share how they've been involved. It's Metro Justice of Rochester, Worker Center of Central New York, and Vocal New York. Ursula, can you bring our first speaker up?
Yes, and let me see if I can find them in the chat. First, we will be hearing from Alice and I think Hannah from Metro Justice. Alice, are you able to unmute yourself now?
Yes, I think I am unmuted. Here we go. Yes.
And is it Hannah that's going to be joining you, or are you our main speaker for Metro Justice tonight?
I think I may be the main speaker. Hannah had another volunteer thing going on tonight and said she would try to join us. But if you haven't found her, then I will be happy to speak. And there are a number of things I'm happy about this year, even if it didn't pass yet. My 2 words I will mention were 1, unfinished, and 2, growing. I think we have the capacity to grow this campaign to the point where, having this year gotten a majority of legislature to co-sponsor, next year we will be able to force them to bring it to a vote. That's the baseline for me. Certainly our group got our immediate local organization way better organized this year, so that I'm feeling like we are finally ready to build a comprehensive strategy, figure out what's going to be most effective, and we've gotten some good tips from Gottfried and Rivera just today, and then follow up on it, do the work, and make people who are wobbling now cease to wobble, because they will realize that if they want to get elected next November, they're going to have to do something for us beforehand. So I'm feeling like we have learned what a fight we have in front of us, and I think we can fight that fight. So that's where we are.
Thank you so much, Alice. And thank you for joining us on behalf of Metro Justice. Metro Justice is part of the Campaign for New York Health Steering Committee and was supporting the fight long before Campaign for New York Health formed, along with many organizations. So thank you for being here to represent and for all your work in Rochester. And next we want to invite up from Vocal New York, Lukey. Am I saying that right? Oh, and I gotta find you and invite you to unmute. Let's see. Lukey?
How are you doing? Yes, you did say my name right. It's Lukey Forbes, and I'm a community organizer with Vocal New York out here in the Albany chapter. And I want to first just appreciate and say thank you to everyone on this call. It is everyone on this call that has really pushed this movement into being where it is now. I want to agree with Alice, like she said, it is really growth. This movement has continued to grow. We know this bill has been in writing since 1992, and the fact that it has not been passed yet is just sad and is disappointing. However, as we continue to see the coalition grow and other coalitions get involved in this, I have no doubt in my mind that this bill will pass and we will see a New York where there is universal health care. And I'm really appreciative of the different legislators that we have been able to really commit and come in as actual champions. And with Vocal and Why, as we're a leader-led organization, and we really gear around directly impacted people. We were at the Albany protest where we actually had a directly impacted person speak there, Tanner, one of our members, and really just continuing to build the voices of directly impacted people who really need this bill, and continuously doing these so that the people know to engage with their elected officials. I feel that we'll continue to build this strength and be able to win the bill within this short period, if not next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Luki. And we're really honored to have Vocal as an ally and the fight to working together in the coming months. Next, we want to turn the microphone over to, from the Worker Center of Central New York, Helen Cordova, who I have the honor of working with locally in the Syracuse area. Helen, thank you so much for making the time to be here. Can you share your perspectives on behalf of yourself and the Worker Center?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Ursula, for inviting me. My name is Helen Cordova, and I am the campaign organizer at the Worker Center in Syracuse, New York. And I'm here today to share about my organization and why the New York Health Act is needed in the communities that we serve. So the Worker Center is a member-based organization that represents the needs of low-wage workers who face workplace discrimination, wage theft, and workplace injuries. And given the tumultuous year that we have all experienced, the urgency of winning healthcare for our workers has grown drastically. And as a planet, we have faced a colossal number of deaths and workplace contaminations of COVID that have not only hurt workers, but their families and communities, and it puts our future at risk. And given the detrimental side effects of that our population has faced, we just cannot continue to sit aside and let hardworking, loving, valuable people die and get sick at the forefront of a poorly handled public health crisis. In the past year and a half, although we have reached massive wins such as the Fund for Excluded Workers, which was mentioned tonight, and the New York Hero Law, it is really important that we work with our advocates and legislators to implement laws that will dictate the way our future communities are impacted by public health disasters and by everyday health needs, just being able to go to the dentist without having to choose between your teeth or dinner for the night. And we have reached a point too far on our planet in which we can allow for dignified individuals, for all individuals, to be denied of the human right to live through healthcare, correct? Someone mentioned that, and the previous speaker mentioned that we've been fighting for this since 1992, but we all know that healthcare is something that humans have always needed. And I appreciate you all being here. I'm really proud to see how many individuals have come out to defend what's just. And although we didn't win at this session, it's really important to know that we have not yet retired from this. We will remain resilient, and we will win the fight for New York Health. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Helen. We're really grateful to have the Worker Center of Central New York as a coalition partner in this fight, and also look forward to strategizing together about how we're going to grow the movement that can get this bill across the finish line. Thank you so much, Helen. And I think, you know, there's, and we wanted to highlight the organizations that we heard tonight, just to give a shout out to some of the groups that helped to make June 7th and this legislative session strong. But there are over 200 organizations in this fight to pass the New York Health Act, and we couldn't be where we are today without this statewide campaign. So thank you to everyone here tonight. Next, we wanted to share a little bit about some of the communications highlights that we saw this year. The New York Health Act, we always want more media coverage, but I'm going to invite up Rachel Cohen, who worked with the campaign part-time this year, to share her perspectives on the media coverage we were able to gain for the Health Act. Rachel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi. So, pleasure to be here tonight with all these fabulous activists. I'll just give a quick overview of some of the highlights of the press aspects of the campaign. So we had 75 clips or, pieces of media during the course of the legislative session this year. By contrast, the opposition had 6. So that was, I'm pretty sure we can safely say we won the media war on this. I think that a tremendous number of activists wrote really amazing letters to the editor and op-ed pieces that they placed in their own local media. Those were incredibly powerful. And then we also had a number of press events and I was able to work with some folks on creating some op-eds as well. There was a really nice one from Lori DeBrowner of Staten Island, sharing her experiences in the New York Daily News about, what happened when her husband, who was a retired New York City school teacher, died, and she and her 24-year-old daughter lost the health care they had gotten through him, and went from paying a couple $100s a month for health care to paying like $2,000 a month with Cobra. So that was like, a very powerful story. And I think, a lot of people shared their experiences in powerful op-eds, letters to the editor pieces, and at some of our press events, and that really had a big impact. I think also at this point, reporters get it because they also have to deal with healthcare issues, dealing with their health insurance companies, what's covered, what's not. And so I think a lot of folks, really understand how terrible our for-profit healthcare system is, and, what a boon to all having, the New York Health Act, passing that would be. So the press coverage was really great. We had some really good coverage of some of our events, and of course the fantastic event in Albany, at the end of the session. There really were a lot of great pieces. So now the fight continues, and media work needs to go on. I think having talked to Ursula and Yu Ling, and their input, and from other activists, we've identified sort of some recommendations and opportunities, for the rest of this year and to the next session. I think we have a slide for that.
Yes, next slide.
Next slide. Sorry, next slide.
No, there it is.
Yeah, so, I think that we had really good coverage of an event with business owners in New York that got like a couple of really nice pieces of TV and print articles. And so I think like sort of this idea of exciting or surprising supporters is really, when reporters are kind of like, I didn't expect that person to come out, that really, will help drive the coverage. Definitely think the elections next year, from a media perspective, pose both a challenge and an opportunity, right? Because everybody wants to talk about the horse race, but I definitely think, a strong campaign and like really relying on the activists like you to like make this an issue in the elections, like that's a huge opportunity. And if, at every candidate event, there's someone there asking the candidate, well, where do you stand on the New York Health Act? Are you going to support it? That can really, add a lot of publicity oomph. Another thing that is really important is finding people who have sort of current or recent stories about how the for-profit healthcare system, has failed them and their health and like the issues they're facing. The people who are willing to talk about that publicly and have really compelling stories, like that's something, we're always looking for to really, make the kind of personal and, heart-touching cases of like why our system, needs to change and why, it's really, we need the New York Health Act to save lives and to keep people out of, crushing medical debt. One thing that, I think would be great to do more of is like having more like union members out as the public face of the campaign. I think the same for, business owners out talking about how this will, make their business better. And then, I think we had really great coverage in English language media this year, but definitely would love to, be able to engage like Spanish language and other ethnic media, because obviously, these issues, everybody is affected by this, not just English speakers. And, I think that this campaign is really, broad-based campaign. And so let's, really make that clear and use the media to speak to, people all across the state. And then we've talked a little bit about, a paid advertising strategy, which can be very effective, but of course you need money for that. So, thinking about, if that's possible to raise some money for ads, what's the most effective way to use advertising, really, to push elected officials, because I don't think, I think the public support is really on our side. We are just need to, use the media strategy, also to like make that push on decision makers. So that's it. Folks have any questions for me or, at any point?
Rachel, we're so grateful. I think one thing that I'm not sure if you said this in the beginning of your comments, but before Rachel and the Time of Day team joined us, I think we had like less than 5 media hits for the New York Health Act, right? And then it jumped up to how many over the course of the session? Did you say 75?
75, yes.
Yeah, so even being able to bring on a communications team very part-time with the campaign, there are so many powerful stories, powerful spokespeople. All of you have so much to say. Just having that media support has really made a huge difference. So we're so grateful to you and the Time of Day team. We didn't get a chance to talk about it much, but many of you saw lots of powerful story-based videos as well about access to long-term care and mental health care. So we really, really appreciated the hard work from Rachel and Meghana, who's not here, to help us up our game on the communications. And we hope to be able to continue working together to really show the power of this movement.
Yes, we were really, such a pleasure to be part of this.
Thank you. So, as we always say, you only get what you're organized to take. This is something that we we borrow. We're in solidarity with a slogan from the National Union of the Homeless, Willie Baptist, and our Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Use this, you only get what you're organized to take. And what everyone has been talking about, you know, from Senator Gustavo and Assemblymember Gottfried to Vocal New York to even through our media and our comms team, you know, we're talking about base building. This is the foundation. Growing the movement is what leads to the legislative support, which leads to being able to put pressure on our legislators to win all the things that we need. And so we have some tools that work in service of base building. And this summer, we'd love to focus on tabling and canvassing, talking to people, having conversations. So less talking at people, right? And more conversations about people's healthcare experiences. And then you can relate it to the New York Health Act and how it might be different. How would your life change if you had guaranteed healthcare? How would guaranteed healthcare change your life? And so in terms of the tabling and canvassing, those who sign up, we're going to do a poll in a little bit and also share in the follow-up email a way to sign up for the various teams and projects. We will share a materials toolkit that will have some updated flyers, some of the good old, you know, timeless flyers that we've had and materials for the New York Health Act, but also perhaps some tweaked ones and updated ones. It will also include the persuasive canvassing toolkit that currently lives on our NYH campaign website. That helps kind of guide you more about how to have the conversations about healthcare experiences and about the policy a little bit. We have some toolkits for kid-friendly tabling tools and projects because the kids are important, but also if you get the kids involved, you probably can get the parents involved too. But they're really fun projects, story gathering tools, and everyone is able to post your event directly to the Campaign for New York Health calendar on our website. So we'll have instructions about how to do that. If you can't figure it out, we can help you. And then the most important thing about the tabling and canvassing is how are you following up with everybody? Do you have a plan to talk to everyone, you know, to follow up with everyone within a day or two, or maybe a week, to talk with them and follow up and engage them even more deeply to continue the conversation. And to help with that, we will be having text banking and phone banking, and we want to develop more volunteers and comrades to be able to help with special ops. And that's things as simple as, you know, adding people's events to our website or updating the website with us with all the new press and letters to the editor that y'all are writing. So that's the basics about tabling and canvassing, and that we'll have tools to help you. We welcome hearing from you, your ideas. Do you want to do it at a block party? Do you want to do it at legislator actions? Do you want to do it in tandem with, you know, community health services, with your organization at the park every week? So there's a lot of ways to do it. We do want you to think about, though, besides the logistics and all the materials and the checklists, that you have everything you need and the people that you need. Who are you actually trying to reach? Who are you trying to bring into the movement? Who's missing from the movement? And not just those questions, but who's missing from the movement that is within your network, right? We firmly believe in relational organizing, and that very basically is that you have the most credibility with the people you know. You have the most credibility in your community. So think about who you can collaborate with or reach out to through your tabling and canvassing, whether it's organizing the tabling and canvassing with them or just tabling and canvassing in their space. So that's that. And I'd like to hand it off to Jeff to talk about our amazing district leader program.
Hey everyone, Jeff Michelson, and it's great to see lots of familiar faces and lots of new ones as well. So last year, this year actually, we launched kind of a trial run of a program called the District Leader Program, which identified people in especially key districts who could take on leadership roles in, mostly this year it was about lobbying legislators and setting up lobby meetings and following through on them. But over the coming year, now that we have more time before the next legislative session starts, we'd like to expand on that and make this role of district leader to be a broader role that encompasses not just lobby efforts, but base building, tabling and canvassing, as Yuling was just describing, and building a movement, a mini movement within each district to put pressure ultimately on the electeds to pass this bill. I think we have 213 districts in the state between the Senate and the Assembly. It would be great to have a district leader for each of them, or at least the key ones. And what this role entails is not just taking on a leadership role, but also communicating with others who are doing the same thing all around the state, different regions and different parts of the state. So there'll be a lot of communication, regular meetings and trainings, for things like power mapping. I think it's really important to pay attention to what the legislators are who they're listening to, where they're getting their money, so what the pressure points are. So we're going to be doing trainings on that and all sorts of things. And Yuling or Ursula, if you could put a link in the chat to the sign up form for that, that would be great. We'd love to recruit some new people. There are some people on the call tonight who played this role this last year and did an amazing job. It really does make a huge difference having a point person that we can rely on to really consolidate the efforts within each district to keep this bill front and center in the minds, not just of the legislators, but the people in the community. We made a lot of noise this last year, and we've been making it for years, but they're clearly not listening, and we need to make it impossible for them not to. And that's part of what the district leader role is all about. So I hope some of you on the call tonight will be inspired and get involved with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for the role that you've played in organizing and mentoring many of the district leaders around the state. I want to shout out Lauren, who is in the picture that we posted on the slide, and the pictures from a meeting with the staff of Assembly Member Diana Richardson. So thank you so much to Jeff and all of the new and old district leaders. It'll come up on the poll whether you want to sign up for that role. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot about is the importance of labor to winning the New York Health Act. The labor movement is responsible for many progressive wins, and in New York, labor is very powerful, and we're very grateful to have the state's largest healthcare unions supporting the New York Health Act. We have the New York State Nurses Association, 1199 SEIU, the Committee of Interns and Residents, the Professional Staff Congress, and I feel bad not naming all of the unions that support the Health Act. Unfortunately, not all of labor is on board yet. And I think it's important to say that even though there are unions that are opposed, that doesn't mean that unions are the opposition, but rather an important and powerful ally that we must win over. And as we heard from Assemblymember Gottfried and Senator Rivera, there are efforts being made at higher levels with union leadership to figure out what are the questions and outstanding issues that some of labor has with the New York Health Act. How can we come to a place where we can win back their support? And we've said on previous calls that the most effective way to win over union support is through efforts of folks that are in labor, that are union members, that have a relationship in labor. And so we know that that is not everyone. However, we have developed some tools because we know that this is something that we must address in order to pass the New York Health Act. So one of the things efforts that was launched towards the end of the legislative session in coordination with New York State United Educators is Educators for the New York Health Act. And we'll send a link to this as well in the follow-up. I am certain that many of you on this call tonight have an education background, and most of us know people who are teachers, whether in our neighborhoods, through our family networks. So please use the Educators for New York Health petition to recruit your educator friends into the movement. Other ways that you can support the effort to grow labor support is by learning more about the fight to stop the privatization of Medicare. In New York City, there is a really serious fight underway right now because many public employee retirees are being threatened with a switch to privatize Medicare Advantage. And they're fighting back. Hundreds of them were in the street just this afternoon on a 100-degree day. So you can learn more about how to support that fight to stop Medicare Advantage by following the link as well at linktree/Save Our Medicare. And if privatization of Medicare can happen in a union town like New York City, it could happen in other parts of the state. So it's really critical to support the retirees who are fighting back against the privatization of Medicare. And the last link on the slide is the invitation to share your story. If you have friends that are in the labor movement and union activists that are concerned or have had problems with healthcare access, please invite them to share their stories. This is really critical to demonstrating why we need universal healthcare. Yuling, next slide.
Okay, so businesses for the New York Health Act. Like the union kind of narrative, we also need a business narrative. And in fact, we have more than 500 businesses in support of the New York Health Act statewide. We want to increase that number, but more importantly, we want to have more deeply engaged businesses. We have wonderful businesses like that you see here on the screen, for example, just some of them that, Cold Spring Cheese Shop right there in the middle. They made huge window decals all on their own, designed and printed and installed that cover up their entire window, all about the New York Health Act and why Hudson Valley businesses want it and need it. On the left, you can see Serena from Booney Coffee up in Washington Heights and Inwood and Riverdale. They have a few more locations. They've grown since they first endorsed the New York Health Act. This family business has come to our public hearings to testify as a business owner, have spoken at our rallies, has made quote graphics, has done letters to the editor, has connected our movement to other movements. And you can see we have farmers and worker cooperatives. We have signage and materials in a variety of languages. And this can be done through, a lot of us, we just walked, every Saturday, if I go get a bagel at the bagel shop 7 blocks away, I will stop by every business on my way every weekend to talk to the business owners. And over time, some of them sign up right away. They're totally down with the cause. Others, take a few conversations, but they know me. I live in the community. I come shop at their shops. And so we have conversations, and eventually they come around and understand why we're fighting so hard for this and how it affects them. Also we've canvassed farmers markets and the Christmas market. We've taken trips up through the Hudson Valley to canvass the various businesses, but also, partake in some wine tasting and stopping at some creeks. So there are a lot of ways to do it. And we'd love for anyone, we have materials and trainings, people who are experienced at this can share all of our experiences to recruit more businesses to support the New York Health Act and to deepen the engagement. And if there are folks who don't want to canvass, there are opportunities. We have 500 business endorsers already, and we want to follow up with every single one of them. So if you want to take a list of 10 businesses to pester, I would love to give you that list and work with you to do that. Back to you, Ursula.
Thank you. I think this might be the last slide. The campaign for New York Health, really, we we rely on support from grassroots activists, and we've been really fortunate to have received support from some of the financial support from some of the unions that we mentioned earlier on the call, the New York State Nurses Association, 1199, and CIR. And thanks to many of you on this call, we were able to spontaneously, well, not spontaneously, but add in a rally into this year's budget that we weren't really sure we could have because of COVID. So we've really been grateful for the successes with fundraising to raise our budget to date. But as we've heard on this call, there are so many possibilities ahead of us, from organizing to communications and paid media. And so all of that requires financial resources. And so one of the asks that we have to you on this call tonight is to consider ways that you can support fundraising for the Campaign for New York Health. We have developed a house party toolkit, for example, to help you plan a fundraiser within your community. The photo on the slide is from a house party hosted in Syracuse by Doctors Lax and Minetti in their home. They had 20 folks over and they shared how passionate they are about this fight for single payer healthcare. And their friends and colleagues opened up their checkbooks to help support the Campaign for New York Health. So your house party, you can set a goal that feels appropriate for your social network and the type of party that you're able to host, whether it's a couple $100 that you want to raise or a few thousand. We can support you in organizing a successful event. And so we hope that you will consider signing up to host a house party for the Campaign for New York Health this summer. And another way to support fundraising for the Campaign for New York Health is to become a recurring donor. We have a goal to raise $3,000 a month through recurring donations. That could be, if you do the math, that could be just 100 people giving $30 a month, 300 giving $10 a month. And if you do the math, that would be close enough to almost hire a full-time organizer to work in a target region, for example. So we really, in the coming months, you might be hearing from us asking you to become a recurring donor, because we know that there's no way we will ever have as much money as the private insurance companies. We know that this movement can, even with a little bit of financial resources, we've been able to accomplish really big things. And so we really want to build up our war chest for 2020. So as the polls pop up, please think about how you're able to join in some of the fundraising efforts to help prepare for 2022.
And so if you are on a laptop, you should be able to see the poll. I apologize for those on a phone, or calling in rather. You won't be able to see the poll, but everyone else on other devices should be able to see the poll. You do have to answer every question in order to submit the poll. I don't know how to change that. So we'll take a minute to do the poll.
How's it looking, Yuling? Are people signing up to host house parties?
Let's see. It looks like about half of the room has finished voting. Keep going. We're gonna stick with the poll for a few more minutes. What is the most popular thing? Let's take a look. Tabling and canvassing. Leading the way so far. Business campaign and district leaders.
Woo, woo.
I love it. I love you all so much. Folks are very uninterested in special ops right now.
Maybe we can just. Okay. So we're approaching the end of our time for this organizing call. Thank you everyone for being on here and for your patience. And we were going to have one more breakout, but we seem to have run out the clock, which we did not mean to do. But the question for the conversation in the breakouts was going to be, what are you most excited to do next? And what kind of support might you seek out in order to do that thing? So yeah, what are you excited to do? And is there anything that you need in order to do that? Let me see here. And so, yeah, I'm going to invite folks to share in the chat. And I know that we're not always used to having the chat turned off, but we also wanted to make sure that you were able to focus on what our guests had prepared to share. So if anyone would like to share in the chat what you're looking forward to doing next, we would love to see that. We can also see via the polls though, right, Yuling?
That is right. Well, folks are putting things in the chat, and I see that almost 100% of the room has done the poll. I just wanted to say that Ursula and I are in the same room right now, and that's exciting because Ursula's usually in Syracuse and I'm usually in Brooklyn. So it's very nice to be together.
It looks like people are really excited to table and debunk misinformation about the Health Act. Ooh, working a table at your county fair. Yes, I love county fairs. Looking forward to getting your union more involved, working our personal networks. People are sending me private messages, so I'm just going to read them out loud. Anna's looking forward to having in-person conversations in your community. Isn't it nice to meet in person again? There is some energy for marching. Lauren is new and excited to be involved. It looks like there's gonna be a lot of tabling. And there was one question. Sarah wants to have a buddy to do things. If anyone wants to team up for tabling or house parties. So Sarah, we can check in and make sure that you're connected with folks that are geographically close to you and find some good campaign partners to join you for tabling and for the house party. Sarah, lots of people want to know where you're located. Well, this is really great. We're so much looking forward to working with you to develop the campaign going forward. There's obviously a lot to say about things that happened this legislative session, lots of feelings, but we know that this is a fight that is a life or death fight. It is a fight and a campaign that we are determined to win. It's one of the human rights struggles of our time to make healthcare a right for everybody in our state and in our country. And I think me and Yuling share the sentiment of feeling very grateful to be able to wake up. And first thing on our minds is, what are we gonna do to help win single payer healthcare today? We couldn't do this work without all of you. Many of you have been doing it much longer than both of us have. So thank you for entrusting us with the roles and allowing us to support you in your campaign efforts. Do we have the results of the course?
Oh, we do. Let's see. Okay, 70% of this room is going to be tabling and canvassing this summer. Thank you so much. A quarter of this room is going to do the district leader work. Thank you so much. That the district leaders are organizers, and we really want to grow the movement and grow like into a leaderful movement. 30% of the room would like to recruit businesses. I love to see that. We have almost a quarter of the room member of a union and would like to help build union support for the New York Health Act. Hosting house parties, almost 20% of the room. And special ops, we've got 10%, but that's good. That's still good.
So this is just a taste of the work that we are going to do together in the coming months. And throughout the summer, Yuling and myself and members of the Campaign for New York Health Steering Committee are going to be reaching out to many of our organizational partners to have some deeper debriefs and conversations about how can we scale up our organizing capacity in the fall in order to be as strong as possible in 2022. And so that will be a process of developing a roadmap for the fall and the winter. But we know that there is, I also have it, we have so much energy ready to go out and organize. So we hope that some of these tools that we shared can help you do the base building that is essential throughout the state. And we cannot underscore the importance of being able to be financially independent so that we are able to do the work of pressuring our legislators relentlessly and escalating the pressure on them. So please think about if you are in a position to make a donation or become one of our recurring donors this year.
So yes, let's grow the movement this summer so we can do all of the things that you put in the chat, and that will be ready. That will make us ready for fall and certainly for 2022 legislative session as well. And we're going to end with a chant. It's forward together, not one step back. And so, okay, unmute everyone, please. I'm going to say forward together, and then you all say not one step back. And we'll do it. Let's do it 3 times.
Forward.
Everyone's been asked to unmute. Yeah, I can see folks. Oh my gosh, what a great room. Hi. Oh yeah, sorry.
That's great. That is awesome. You are going to accelerate very.
Okay, ready? Forward together.
Together.
One
Step
back.
Forward
Forward
together.
together.
step back.
Forward together.
Forward together.
One step
back.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Forward together.